Well, thank you, everybody. Welcome. We're so excited to have you joining us tonight. First of all, my name is Marcus Schweitzer. I'm the executive director of our Win the Era effort. Thank you all for your support. We could not have done this without you. Very successful event tonight. Before we kind of kick things off, really excited about the announcement of our 22 endorsed candidates. I know a lot of you have had input and helped us get to this point, and so we're excited now to get on the ground and do the work. But now to the event today. We're excited to hear from Mayor Pete, but we also have a special guest, Sonal Shah, from the campaign, and so we'll hear some words, but then also have a moderated question and answer. So, Pete.
All right, well, thank you, Marcus, and thanks everybody for being part of this gathering. I am thrilled to report that Win the Era is off to a terrific first phase. Hopefully by now you've had a chance to see the 22 candidates that we rolled out as our first round of endorsements. I've already been able to do a number of virtual events with them, and they reflect so well on this organization and on your commitment to help us make sure that we're supporting them. We started out with the idea that this powerful community of wonderful supporters could continue to have an impact, not only in continuing the effort to recapture the White House, but also making sure that, as I always said, we never treat the presidency like it's the only office that matters, and are there consistently in races up and down the ticket. And that's exactly what we're doing, along with continuing to give voice to issues that we care about, from justice and equality to America's role in the world. And with your help, the Win the Era Action Fund and the Win the Era PAC are often running, facilitating that work. I had originally imagined that would have meant this organization would be fueling travel and logistics as I went speaking out on issues and stumping for candidates around the country. Obviously, it's taking a different shape than that, but in many ways, that's making it even more important that we do what we're doing. I see a paradox right now in the moment we're living in. On one hand, we're being reminded powerfully just how important these offices beyond the presidency are. State officials, governors, and mayors are making life or death decisions in the absence of federal leadership. And the question of how we make sure that our elections are successful and fair and accessible is really being decided by state and county officials around the United States. It's never been more clear how much depends on all of these offices. The paradox is, at the very same time, there's never been less oxygen, less attention, and I'm afraid perhaps less money available to make sure those races go well. And that is a vacuum that we have a chance to step in, and that's exactly what we're doing. And just like Pete for America, we're organizing around values. First of all, guided by the rules of the road that were so important to us, and that you as a community of supporters so beautifully lived out in a way that reflected well on me and our campaign and helped us win more and more supporters as we went. And I'm pleased to report that the Biden campaign has crafted its own, what they call, campaign code, which they explicitly referred to the rules of the road in creating, and I think is a great example of how that spirit of values-based campaigning and that idea of codifying those values has continued to spread. Some other criteria that were very important for us in choosing candidates and issues to support have included, first of all, generational leadership, making sure that we are speaking to the long run and investing in candidates, many of whom belong to a newer generation or successor generation of leaders, and all of whom have exhibited the quality of paying attention in their work and stepping out in their policy commitments to make sure that we are protecting and supporting future generations. We continue to focus on building belonging, supporting candidates who are committed to ensuring, and often by their very example, demonstrate that we can build a better sense of belonging, where without regard to belief or ability or race or background or ethnicity or sexual orientation or gender identity, everybody knows that they fit in their communities and in the broader American project. We are supporting pioneering campaigns and causes. Sometimes folks cut against the grain a little bit. A candidate of color in a mostly white district, somebody who represents the first ever out candidate to even make the attempt at seeking the office that they're in or that they're going after. And in doing that, we think we can widen the circle of inclusion and of leadership. And we're so thrilled with the way that you've helped us do that. And of course, we're looking for substantive causes and candidates whose policies reflect that long-termism that in particular is important at a moment like this, where the response to the pandemic, yes, but really the response to the questions that the pandemic has called about where we are as a country, about our economic and social and political future, that we have the bold and big and serious answers, or at least are asking the bold and big and serious questions that are going to lead us to the right place. And again, personal qualities that rhyme with those values, the rules of the road that mean so much to us. These are the things that have been on our mind as we built up Win the Era. And it means so much to have the support of Team Pete to make sure that this has been a success. And then part of what we did by asking, in particular, those who are often the most wonderfully supportive and energized around Pete for America, to also form, as you have, the core of Win the Era, is that you carry with you and in you an understanding, I think, of the values and the priorities that motivate us. But what's really exciting about this moment is we're also now on the horizon of being able to reach to people who are outside of the original kind of circles that we were able to move in. In other words, people who share our values, share the commitments to the things I was just talking about, but maybe we're in another place in the presidential primary, and now we're all in the same team. And so there's a chance to reach out in new ways. Maybe the biggest thing we have a chance to do right now, and what matters a lot to me, especially with the darkness of issues that we are seeing make themselves felt, from the death toll of the coronavirus pandemic to the horrific racial injustice that has the community of Minneapolis in such pain today, is causes for hope and a belief that we can do better in the future. That's how I feel every time I engage with the people that we're supporting in this effort. And that's part of what you're investing in by helping me call them up with good news that we are a wind at their back, helping them get things done. So that's why I'm so grateful for your involvement. It's why I'm so enthused about what we're able to do with the PAC and with the Action Fund. But I'm going to wrap my remarks there because we're so thrilled to have with us right now Sonal Shah. Sonal was the policy director of our campaign. And as you know, from the Douglas Plan for tackling systemic racial inequality to our vision on national service and the possibilities there, to ways that we were able to weigh in and really break new ground on so many policy areas. We had a phenomenal policy operation of both staff professionals and people volunteering their time, and Sonal was the heart of that. Very wisely, the Biden campaign has decided to appoint her to one of the critical committees that is forming the policy priorities and the policy expressions, not just to drive the Biden campaign, but to bring the Democratic Party together in that all-important path toward unity as we go through the convention and look into the fall. So I'm so thankful that Sonal had some time to offered some time to spend with us, and look forward to a conversation with her, as well as speaking with supporters on the call about what's on your mind.
Mayor, thank you. And it's always so great to work with you. And every time I listen to you, I'm like, oh, now I know exactly why I was on the campaign and why I wanted to be on your campaign. So thank you for everything you're doing. And thank you for the Win the Era PAC, and especially supporting all the down ballot races, which are so critical and important and important to invest in. I just wanted to give a quick update on where we are on the Biden side. I have wholeheartedly joined into the Biden campaign because I cannot imagine another 4 years of the current president. And I think it's super important that we're all a part of that. I've joined the Economy Task Force, which is a unity task force. There's 6 task forces that the Biden-Sanders campaigns agreed to when Senator Sanders endorsed Biden, vice president. It's economy, health, education, immigration, criminal justice. And these task forces are bringing together the Biden team, which has appointed also people like me who are part of other campaigns or who was part of the Buttigieg campaign. And then there are others others from other campaigns, but they have their team, and then there's the Sanders team that has come on board. And what our goal is to do is, by the time the convention comes around, by the end of June or mid-July, is to feed into the Democratic platform what our common views are and what our common values are as we move forward. The beauty of the conversation, and we'll have our second task force meeting tomorrow on economics, is the values are very aligned. We may disagree on tactics and particular approaches, but on values we are all aligned, and that's the best part of being on the Unity Task Force. We have 6 weeks to come together to create the platform and to feed into the platform. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's been great to be a part of it. And at the same time, the Biden campaign has started to put out a series of policy areas that they are focused on. So for those that may not know about it, if you're interested in joining the policy teams, let us know. We'll certainly send you the information on it. But it's important to get your input, to get your ideas, and to make sure you're feeding into the process, which would be great. They just launched the committees. I'm leading one of them, which is creating a 21st century government. But there's a series of committees on economy, innovation, energy, health. As you can imagine, there's a lot to do there. And what those task forces are focused on, not the task force, what that's focused on is really thinking about if Vice President Biden, when he becomes president, what will the first day look like? What will the first 100 days look like? And what should the policy agenda be moving forward? So there's a lot of work to do. I am super grateful to be on it, but I really bring the values of everything that we did on our campaign to the task forces, but also to the campaign there.
I'm so glad you're there, and so glad that they're tapping your insights, and that's really helpful to hear that latest up-to-date information too, because I know that a lot of these workings are just out of view right now as the current crisis commands so much of our attention. So terrific. Let me toss back to Anthony to quarterback our Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everybody who submitted questions ahead of time. We got a lot of great questions, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. I'm just going to unmute y'all as we go, but our first question is going to be from Wes Jensen in Nebraska. Let's see. Wes, you're unmuted, which is great. You had a question about campaign policy. Appropriate.
Yeah, I was just curious sorry, I was actually DMing Mayor Christine, so totally caught me off guard. But was just wondering what policy do you feel, so many solid, and just what policy do you feel is critical that the Biden administration and any other candidate at the national or local level adopts to better our democracy?
Well, I'll tell you some of my feelings. So first of all, again, it's hard to believe that the stakes could have gotten any higher than they already were, but the stakes on confronting racial and economic inequality in this country have gotten higher in the context of the pandemic, in the context of the killing of George Floyd, and really, I think, as I often said on the campaign, I think that the success or failure of the American project largely depends on whether we successfully confront these issues in our time. And so whether it bears the name of the Douglas Plan and has all of the details in there or not, it's very important, as by the way, we've seen in many dimensions, that the DNA of some of those ideas, I think, find their way into the party platform and the work of many candidates, and certainly the work of the future White House. I think that the urgency of new economic arrangements has only grown more powerful. You know, we've always talked about trying to make sure that a lifelong relationship with a single employer was no longer something you had to assume just in order to get benefits or get by. If you had one, that was great. And that's one of the reasons why we want to make sure we preserve what people had, but also make sure that you no longer had to count on that in order to get anywhere. And again, that was before we hit literally unprecedented levels of unemployment in this country and the crisis. Sorry, Truman and Buddy are very concerned about Chastity taking out the trash in their dog mentality. I think they're worried if he'll ever return. Very interesting concept of time. I'm worried what's going to happen We actually are leaving the house again. Anyway, if you hear odd noises, that's what that's about. So those are just a couple of examples. I'm also excited about making sure that the foreign policy worldview that we articulated, especially focus on calling a new generation of professionals to service, a diverse body of foreign policy voices, so that we have more Chris Stevenses and fewer John Boltons in the next generation of people who represent the U.S. abroad. I think that, as well as figuring out how to navigate the international institutions that the U.S. helped create, but we now seem to be abandoning for others to figure out without us. I think these are critically important, and just a few of the things where I think we made really. Now you got me thinking about all the things for mental health, what we believe we could do around labor. Look, I love all of it, and all of it's very important. But also, I'm pleased with how much rhyme there is in values and in specifics between what we had to say during our campaign and what I see these campaigns picking up. And I don't know, Sonal, if you want to editorialize or add in terms of some of the threads that you see that especially seem to be gaining life in the committee. I know it's a work in progress, but.
Yeah, no, I had ticked off the things I would say, and you've said them all. So I just want to reiterate, I think racial equity is on the table, and I think it's important that we sort of think about everything that we do from a lens of equity, but also race. And it's certainly what we've been talking about on the task force side. But I think it's something that we were thinking about on the campaign, and it's even more important.
Thanks, Sonal. Our next question is going to be from Lance in New York. Lance, you should be unmuted. Let's see. There we go. Are you with us, Lance?
Okay. Yes, I am here with Chuck, my husband. When the death toll from the coronavirus passed 100,000 yesterday, I happened to look up what cities that would be equal to, and South Bend popped up as that we basically lost the equivalent of the population of South Bend already, and that no other country in the world is got a death toll like this. So my question was, what can the candidates we support work to do so this never happens again in America?
Well, what a powerful comparison, and it wasn't lost on me as well as I was trying to get my head around what 100,000 souls, which of course we know is probably an undercount, but what that represents, and it represents my entire community wiped out. And so we know that we can't allow this to happen again. We have to be more resilient. Some of the policies, well, the most upsetting thing is some of these things were in place and were dismantled by this administration. Not just the office in the NSC, part of the National Security Council that was there in order to prepare for global health security threats like this, but also things you don't hear about quite as much, like CDC personnel who were placed in China, for example, tracking this sort of thing, who were part of what was removed or undercut by this administration. So restoring things that were already on the right track is one piece of it, but of course it's going to take a lot more than that. And as we look to the future, I think we've got to remember just how challenging the next steps of resolving this issue will be. I've been in touch with teams of experts and researchers who are converging around it has the kind of inelegant name of TTSI. Stands for Testing, Tracing, Supported Isolation. But it's basically what's becoming the consensus framework about what we've got to do in order to be able to safely reopen and deal with what will probably be not a beginning and an end, but flare-ups and a kind of cycle of this virus. There are ways, if and only if we have enough testing, to make sure that we can respond in a more targeted way without bringing society to its knees, as has happened here. But it takes intention, it takes leadership, and it's one more example of why local leadership matters as well as federal. One policy I believe in that I was glad that the VP has espoused too is the idea of a national testing board, basically using some of the same kinds of capacities and assets that an FDR would have used to make sure this country could generate a remarkable number of pieces of military equipment the Studebaker factory here in South Bend turned on a dime to make Jeeps because that's what America needed. Same thing to generate the level of testing that we're going to need. But the thing I would really invite you to think about is the vaccine. So I think we've allowed ourselves to suppose that once the vaccine is invented, then the crisis is over. I just saw a survey that says that when people were asked, if a vaccine that was working became available, would they get it? Only half of the people surveyed said yes. And that's telling us how many people feel enough trust and confidence that they would seek it, let alone being able to get it. Our challenges in many ways are just beginning when the vaccine has been invented. We've actually got to get it distributed. That's going to require federal leadership. It's going to require funding and making sure that people's access to it is not contingent on whether they are well off or whether they already had healthcare in the past. And it's going to require local leadership, not just to build the resources, but to build the trust. I just saw a fascinating presentation by the public health officer of New Orleans describing how difficult it was at first to even just testing. And I think this will happen with the vaccine too. To get many of the most marginalized communities access to it, and for them to be comfortable to access things that were at the hands of a government that they had been led to, given every reason to mistrust. So I guess what I'm saying is not only do we need a lot of policy interventions to make testing and tracing and vaccines widely available, we also need a cultural shift where people feel that they have enough trust in their community and in institutions and in their government to really engage with these efforts. That's what it's going to take, in my view, not only to bring the coronavirus pandemic under control, but to help make sure that we have the resilience we'll need as a country so that the next pandemic, and there will be a next pandemic of some kind, doesn't bring us to our knees the way this one did.
Sonal, you want to add anything there?
No, I mean, I would only add just to add to the mayor's great comments. And one, we need to reinvest in local governments and state governments, and we just need to put more money in. And we've underinvested in public health institutions. We've underinvested in government. And I would say one of the biggest things we could be doing and we need to be doing to rebuild that trust is also investing in people to go into government and make sure that frankly, the next generation sees that this is a place that they can go do good. I think it's important. And we're seeing it through the crisis where it's frankly local governments that are picking up the slack for the federal government, and we need more of it. So I know the next bill in Congress is looking at that, but I think as a government, when we take office, we will need to invest in that.
Thanks, Sonal. Our next question is actually for both of you to give answer to. So Tricia, you're unmuted now in Maryland. Are you there?
Yes. Yep. There. So what do you think the ways in which the coronavirus can help us become better after this?
I'm sorry, your audio just got clipped for a moment. The coronavirus can help us become what now?
Better as a society.
Good. Yeah. Sonal, you want to go ahead and add some thoughts too?
You are much more eloquent on this. Tricia, great question. I think there are a few things that come out of this, in my view. That one, we have shown that when we want to, as a community, come together, we can. And while we see all the bad stuff on the news, there's also lots of things that have happened that are good, of communities coming together, helping their neighbors, doing more. And I think we should certainly build on that. But two, Tricia, I would say, I think one of the bigger things that we could be doing is making sure that we tell local candidates, there's so much information about what didn't work because the federal government didn't do their job. So I hope candidates that are running will sort of run on what didn't work at very local levels. Let's not worry about the president. Let's worry about what didn't work, because I'm living in Texas, so I'll just give you my own example here. Rather than run against the president, run against the governor and who's not doing anything for the city. We haven't expanded Medicaid. We will run out of Medicaid money pretty quickly. Unemployment insurance is a third of what everybody else gets. All of that could be issues to run on, and there's a lot we can do at that level. And I think there's an opportunity here to really hold the local to hold the local officials more effectively responsible and not just run on the president. I think that's where there's an opportunity.
So I think that's exactly right. And I guess what I would add to that are just a couple things where I think, first of all, at a very deep level, this is revealing how interdependent we all are, that one of us can help or can certainly harm others by our choices. And I think the reminder of that, harsh as it's been, may equip us to do better in the future at just a broad policy and even philosophy level. A second thing that's a little more concrete is I think that as we step up to deliver what will be the massive amount of mobilization that we need to implement things like contact tracing, and again, also in the future, a vaccine, I think that could go arm in arm with some of the ideas that I've long believed in about national service. And the call, in the same way that people who came of age when I did, some of us felt called to military service because of the impact that 9/11 had. I'm hoping that this catastrophe will motivate a number of people, whether it's specifically in public health or in other areas, to become part of a culture and perhaps a career of service. The third thing that I would mention that I think this can prepare us for, make us better for, is preparing for dealing with climate. If you just think about the contours of this issue, the fact that it, again, reveals our interdependence, the fact that confronting it requires us to pay attention to what experts and scientists have to say, the fact that it cannot be resolved without international coordination because the harms are local, but the problem moves around globally, the fact that it's something that none of us can deal with alone. All of these are very glaringly true of confronting climate as well. Even the pattern of the false choice we've been presented between doing the right thing and doing the right thing economically, right? Which is actually a choice between, I think, short-term commitment to the way we're used to being economically and what true economic security would look like in addition to dealing with these issues. Striking parallels between the coronavirus pandemic and the climate challenge, which means if we can get this right, which is a big if, we will have the experience as a country and as a human species in mobilizing for what we're going to have to do across the 2020s in order to get ahead of the climate challenge too. So as I'm looking for, I love your question because it calls on us in a sometimes weak moment to think about a brighter future. Those are some of the ways I think rising to meet the challenge of this moment could better equip us to be ready for that future.
Thanks so much, Mayor. Our next question comes from a good friend of the campaign in Iowa. Are you with us? You should be unmuted.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, so good to see you, Bridget.
Hey, hi, Pete. My question is, this is more of kind of a silly one, but what has been your favorite thing to do for fun during all of this quarantine when everyone's been having to stay at home?
Thanks for reminding me of a happy topic. Sam, great seeing you too. Yeah, I will say this: as terrible as the situation is, it's in many ways for me. I mean, when you're coming off the presidential campaign, you never get to be home. In the last month, I think we were home one day, and so this isn't exactly what I had in mind, but I was looking for more time at home. Chasten and I, we're looking for more time together. And so my favorite thing is just spending time with Chasten, with Truman and Buddy, who I think are very glad to have us home more. And even though we're working a lot, matter of fact, I'm amazed by how busy you can get without actually going anywhere. We're really trying to make the most of the time we have together too, from just watching movies and walking the dogs on a much more regular basis to Chasten found an app that lets you play Monopoly without having to mess around with the little pieces. It's been a nice little diversion too. So like everybody else, we're finding our new normal. And I've got to say that even though nobody wished this situation to happen, I'm thankful for the time we get to spend together, and I hope that you all are doing well too. It's great seeing you, and
Yes, it's great seeing you too. Sorry about our dog Sherman barking.
I know the feeling.
Truman
It's the
and
exact
Buddy.
same here with Truman and Buddy. Maybe they're communicating in some way.
Give them some pets for me. I love them.
I will do.
Hey, tell Chaston I said hi.
I sure will. He'll be delighted to hear that we got to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Aw. Hey, no problem. Thank you for.
Thanks, Brigitte.
What a treat.
Always good to see good friends from the campaign. The next question is from Angie in Wisconsin. Angie, your video's not on, but you are unmuted.
Oh, hi. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I'm having some problems with my video. Hi, Pete.
How you doing?
Hey, good. I have a question. As we look to the future of the Win the Era PAC, what do you see as your vision for it going into the November 2020 elections and beyond?
Great. Well, thanks for that. The biggest thing I think we can do, certainly in the 5 and change months that are ahead, is to mobilize as many people as we can around these critical campaigns. Who, look, we're not even coming close to endorsing every worthy candidate. It isn't possible. But what we can do with the selection of wonderful candidates and campaigns that we're backing is not just help them individually, but I think tell a bit of a story about the importance of races at every level. We've got governors and Senate races, and we've got a candidate for county supervisor and a mayor and state legislators. And we want to make sure that we're showing the range of offices we care about, the diversity of backgrounds that we care about, and making that statement and then concretely helping them make it going into November is a priority. Part of my vision is not only that we can raise financial resources, but we can raise awareness, especially out of the campaigns that aren't getting as much attention, because again, these state and local offices are more important than ever, but there's just not a lot of room for them to get attention right now. And so if we can say the day after Election Day that Win the Era helped elevate the profile of not just campaigns that were winning and that were important, but individuals who deserve more support and are going to be an important part of the future, then that's going to be a huge win for our effort. I also want it to be said of our effort through this year that we got people thinking about issues in new ways, that we continued to insist on real democracy and democratic reform, that we drew attention to the urgency of issues around climate, that we continue to stand for racial and economic equality, and in so many other ways we're speaking to the issues that we care about, that are important in our party, but that I think we can call people from across the aisle to care about and to vote as well. And as we look beyond, that's where I think we have a chance to continue to gather the energy and the commitment and the passion of this community of supporters and put it to work in new ways that we might not even fully be able to imagine right now. Look at how much the world has changed just in the last 3 months. And think about, excuse me, where we might be 6 months or a year or 3 years from now. We named it Win the Era because of my belief that what happens in any given campaign season is about more than just the outcome of the one campaign or who gets to serve 2 years or 4 years in the one office that you're campaigning for. It matters because it's going to shape the road ahead. And that's especially true in the times we're living in, that the way the 2020s unfold, and therefore the way the 2050s one day are going to look, all depends on the work that we're doing right now. So I want to be able to settle into retirement one day, looking at the actions that we took starting in 2020 and the community that we built starting in 2019, but are now gathering in a new fashion. And that we put that to work in ways that are a credit to the moment, and that we'll be proud to tell the future generation what we're here for.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Angie. And thanks, Mayor. I think we have time for one more quick question. We'll get in before we wrap. But I want to turn it over to Caroline Hibbard. Caroline has a question about national service. She's in Maine. You with us, Caroline?
Well, Joe, yeah, I'm here. Joe's been talking about greatly expanding AmeriCorps. deal with the pandemic and the climate change. And one of your policies that I most like, the new call to service, is likewise newly and urgently relevant. What have you been thinking about implementation? Have you considered how you might use voluntary associations, everything from fraternities and sororities to Elks Club and VFW, to encourage and mobilize people to get involved in this national service?
Yes, I love the way that you framed this question, because we have so many existing pieces to build from publicly supported entities and efforts like AmeriCorps to voluntary associations like the ones you just mentioned. And so we don't have to reinvent something out of whole cloth. Part of what excites me about the opportunities for national service is that the machinery, so to speak, is already there. And in fact, right now, if Congress were to appropriate the funds, they could use just the existing laws and the existing bodies of service to massively increase, I mean, by hundreds of thousands, perhaps, the number of people who get an opportunity to serve. And I'm very excited about the possibilities for a generation of young people, high schoolers who are graduating into a moment that reveals just how much is at stake and why we need to be part of resolving issues in the world around us. But I'm also very excited about the potential for seniors to be serving and contributing their lived experience in new ways through voluntary work in different associations. And so rather than try to cram all of this into one organization, I think we have an opportunity to make sure that more resources find their way and more forms of mission find their way to this wonderful tapestry of voluntary associations and organizations that we have. Because people will find in their own way how their existing mission meets the moment. I'll give you a simple example. There's an organization here in South Bend. It's called So Loved, S-E-W, it's a pun. And part of what they did was, what they do is they train vulnerable young women in sewing skills to help them get jobs in industry. You know, we do a lot of manufacturing around here. There's a lot of sewing work in the industrial context, in addition to it being a life skill. Really neat, local nonprofit, faith-driven, living their values. When the crisis hit, they realized that they could be helpful by creating masks, and flipped all of their kind of programming and equipment to be part of that. And so I think so many people are now being imaginative about how whatever it is they're good at can be fit to this moment. And with a little bit more help, a little bit more funding, we could help more organizations and more individuals take whatever it is they have to offer and contribute that. But in the process, also build a level of trust, a level of connection between people, even if it's just through that organization of working together on something urgent, that I think we need, because part of how we got here is that there's not even a trust in a shared reality. You know, people get their own information, they listen to their own sources, they believe their own facts, sometimes they develop their own interpretation over whether science has something to say or not. I mean, we need to get back to a sense of some kind of shared reality. And shared experiences are a big part of how you do that. And with the possible exception of excellent public education, which I also think is a way to make sure that lots of different people will have a foundation in a shared experience. But besides that, I can't think of a better way than service opportunities to give people the shared experience that helps create the trust, that helps us invest in future shared projects together as citizens. And I think that's never been more important.
Thanks so much, Caroline. I think I just want to, again, thank everybody for joining today. We raised a great amount of money. We're so thankful for everybody who contributed, supported, told their friends, invited people. I'll give a last opportunity for Sonal and the mayor to kind of close us out and thank everybody, and I'll pass it to you, Sonal, first.
Thanks, Anthony. Thank you all for joining. This is such a great community and a great group. And I really just appreciate everything you're doing, both on supporting the PAC and local candidates, but to also support the Democratic Party and just making sure that we can win in in 2020. But I do say, and I will again send out a note to Anthony, if you have ideas, if there are things that you think are important for the campaign, please do send them. It's important. You were doing it when we were on the campaign, and would love to hear more from you and any ideas you might have. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me, Mayor. It's so great to do anything with you. It's always fun, and so fun to hear and listen to your passion on national service at the last question. But thank you for having me be a part of this.
Well, thanks, Sonal, for joining us tonight, and thanks for the really important work that you're doing. I feel so reassured to know that you're at the heart of this process. And a big thank you to everybody who's part of this. You know, if everybody who's on this call stays involved and draws a couple others into the process, we will continue to be an extraordinary force, really an unstoppable force, I think, in living out our values and making things better. It's a tough time. I understand why there is pressure on our very optimism about the future of America right now. But what better moment to rise and respond and make a difference right now? You could say that the flip side of this confusion and chaos and suffering that we're going through should be the knowledge that anyone who is around right now, anyone who's alive and able to vote or even simply to volunteer or to contribute, will have a chance to shape the future at one of these moments that decides what the future is going to look like. There's a lot of pressure that goes with that. There's a lot of challenge and even confusion that goes with that. But there's also an opportunity that in the future we will look back at these days and what we did. And you're already such a big part of that. By committing to this effort and by staying motivated, looking after one another, strengthening the bonds of this community of support and helping us grow. So I can't thank you enough. I can't wait till I get to see you and thank you in person whenever that becomes possible. But in the meantime, thanks for evolving with us and helping us gather virtually. And stay tuned for more exciting news and information about all the activities we're doing with Win the Era that you are so generously helping make possible.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.